Clean it with your tongue, Jennifer snarled, her voice cutting like glass through the hushed elegance of Aurora Lux, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at the golden heel glistening with mud. 3 identical little girls, barely 5 years old, froze. Their small, dirty striped dresses clung to them, tears spilling onto the pristine marble floor. The smallest, Jessica, reached trembling for the shoe. The triplets, huddled together, had sought refuge near the display section, their matching striped dresses soaked and streaked with dirt from the relentless downpour outside. Their presence was an affront to Jennifer's meticulous standards. Welcome, my beloved family. This story is going to be amazing, so please like, comment where you are watching from, and follow if you haven't. Let's continue. Her patience, already thin, snapped entirely when one of them, in their fright, accidentally dislodged a small clump of mud that landed dangerously close to her sparkling, custom-made designer shoe. The casual disregard for her expensive footwear ignited a volatile rage in Jennifer. She advanced, her voice rising from a hiss to a sharp command that made her own staff flinch. "How dare you defile my shoe?" she seethed, her gaze fixed on the mud. "You little wretches, you'll learn respect. Clean it with your tongue." The words hung in the air, a grotesque order, as Jessica, the youngest, her eyes wide with terror, began slowly, hesitantly, to lower her head towards the glittering, now sullied, heel. Kings Johnson stepped forward, his presence filling the space. Jennifer, her face draining of color, stammered a defense, but King's gaze was unwavering. "You're fired, Jennifer, immediately. We do not tolerate such cruelty in my establishment." Security swiftly moved in, escorting a sputtering, humiliated Jennifer from the store, her arrogance shattered for good. With Jennifer gone, Kings knelt, bringing himself to the triplets' eye level. His harsh CEO demeanor melted away, replaced by a gentle concern. "Are you 3 all right?" he asked, his voice unexpectedly soft. "You look cold and hungry. Would you like to come inside where it's warm? I can get you something to eat." The girls, still trembling, nodded silently, their small hands still tightly clasped. Kings led them carefully through the astonished patrons and whispering staff towards his private office. Inside, as his assistant brought hot chocolate and warm towels, and the triplets ravenously devoured sandwiches, Kings watched them. His eyes lingered on their faces. There was something undeniably familiar about them. Their large, expressive brown eyes, the subtle curve of their smiles, even the way they spoke in soft, almost melodic tones. It stirred a dormant memory within him, a ghost of a woman he had once loved. But he quickly dismissed it. It couldn't be. "What are your names?" he asked gently. "I'm Tony," said the bravest. "I'm Selena," whispered the middle one. "And I'm Jessica," the smallest added. "And your mother?" Kings inquired, a strange premonition gripping him. "She's sick," Tony explained, her voice small. "She's very sick, and we have no more food. Her name is Maya Lawrence." The name struck Kings like a physical blow. Maya Lawrence. 7 years. 7 years since she vanished from his life, leaving a gaping wound. He looked at the triplets again. Their faces suddenly etched with undeniable echoes of her, and of himself. The timeline. It fit perfectly. His heart pounded with a terrifying, exhilarating realization. Kings rose, his mind reeling. He knew, with an absolute certainty that transcended logic, that his life had just changed irrevocably. He needed to find Maya, and he needed to protect these girls. This shocking discovery was only the beginning. The seeds of a past betrayal, a cruel corporate secret, and an unimaginable love had just been unearthed, about to reshape his empire, his identity, and his entire future. King's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the elegant silence of his private office. Maya Lawrence. The name, whispered by a child, ripped open old wounds and ignited a terrifying, exhilarating realization. 7 years ago, she had simply vanished, leaving a void that even his immense success couldn't fill. Now, here were 3 living, breathing echoes of her and of himself. He looked at the triplets again, their small faces still smeared with the evidence of their ravenous meal, their eyes, so like hers, now meeting his with a tentative trust. Jessica, the youngest, still clung to a half-eaten sandwich, her earlier terror slowly fading into childish curiosity. Selena, observant and quiet, watched him with an intensity beyond her years. And Tony, the bravest, was the one who had spoken their mother's name, unknowingly detonating a bomb in King's carefully constructed world. His mind raced, a whirlwind of memories, guilt, and a desperate hope. Maya, here? And these girls, his girls? The thought sent a jolt through him that dwarfed any corporate crisis he had ever faced. He needed to be absolutely sure, but deep down, a primal instinct, a resonance in his very soul, told him it was true. With Jennifer gone, a ripple of stunned silence had spread through Aurora Lux. Customers and staff alike stood frozen, digesting the raw power of King's intervention and the abrupt public downfall of their imperious manager. Jennifer, her face a mask of disbelief rapidly morphing into crimson rage, had spluttered incoherent protests as 2 of King's discreet security personnel guided her firmly towards a back exit. Her humiliation was palpable, a stark contrast to her earlier arrogance. Whispers followed her, a mixture of shock, schadenfreude, and a dawning understanding that perhaps the rules of Aurora Lux had just been rewritten. For the first time in a long time, the air in the store felt cleaner, less suffocating. But King's focus was no longer on Jennifer or the impressed murmurs of his employees. His world had shrunk to the 3 small figures now huddled in his opulent office. He had moved with a swiftness that surprised even himself, dispatching his assistant to ensure the girls were immediately cared for. Blankets had been procured, cashmere, of course, the softest the store could offer, and a tray laden with warm, hot chocolate and an array of delicate pastries had appeared as if by magic. Though the girls had opted for more substantial sandwiches, the gesture of comfort was evident. Kneeling before them earlier, King's had felt an unfamiliar tenderness bloom in his chest. His usual stern demeanor, honed by years of cutthroat business, had simply melted away. "Are you 3 all right?" he had asked, his voice unexpectedly soft, devoid of its usual commanding edge. Their silent nods, their small hands still tightly clasped, had tugged at something deep within him. He had led them to his office, a sanctuary of dark wood and understated luxury, a stark contrast to the cold, wet streets they had endured. Now, watching them, the fragmented pieces of their story began to weave into his own. "She's sick," Tony had explained, her brow furrowed with a worry too mature for her age. "She has a bad cough and fever. She told us to find help because we had no more food." The words painted a grim picture, a life of struggle far removed from the gleaming world of Aurora Lux. King's felt a profound pang of empathy, layered with a burgeoning guilt. Where had he been all this time? Why hadn't he known? The memory of Maya, vibrant and full of life, swirled in his mind, overlaying with the image of these three small, vulnerable girls, her infectious laugh, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled. He had searched for her for months, then years, eventually accepting her disappearance as a tragic, inexplicable end to their intense secret relationship. But Maya, a mother? His heart throbbed with a mix of awe and terror. He needed answers, and he needed them now. The world outside his office, with its panicked investors and media storm, suddenly seemed utterly insignificant. There was only one truth that mattered, one woman he had to find, and three little girls whose lives he instinctively knew were now intrinsically tied to his own. The chapter ended, not with a definitive answer, but with the potent, overwhelming realization that everything Kings believed about his past, his present, and his future had irrevocably changed. Kings rose from his crouch, the full weight of Maya Lawrence's name settling heavily upon him. His mind, usually a fortress of logical analysis, was now a maelstrom of emotions, 7 years of unanswered questions, of a love lost and buried, clawed their way back to the surface. He looked at Tony, Selena, and Jessica, their innocent faces now imprinted with a new, terrifying significance. He saw Maya in their wide, dark eyes, in the delicate curve of their chins. The crushing weight of a possible paternity pressed down on him, staggering him more than any boardroom battle ever could. This wasn't just a corporate crisis. This was his life, unspooling before him in a way he never imagined. The responsibility, immense and immediate, settled deep within him. He couldn't send them away. He wouldn't. They were Maya's, and in every fiber of his being, he knew they were his too. Helena, Kings's voice, though still soft, carried a new, urgent command as his assistant entered the office. I need my security detail to arrange immediate, discreet transport for these girls to my penthouse. Arrange for a nanny, the best you can find, to be there within the hour, and initiate a full confidential investigation into Maya. Every detail, every lead. Do not alert anyone else. Helena, a veteran of King's unpredictable demands, simply nodded, her expression unreadable but efficient. Soon after, the triplets found themselves in a new world. King's penthouse, a sprawling, minimalist marvel of glass and steel overlooking the Manhattan skyline, was a stark contrast to their recent existence. Their initial awe, wide-eyed stares at the vast rooms and glittering cityscape, slowly gave way to a hesitant comfort under the gentle care of Maria, the kind-faced nanny Kings had instantly hired. Kings observed them from a distance, a silent, almost phantom presence. He watched them play, saw their small worries dissipate with the warmth and safety, and felt an unfamiliar ache in his chest. The first stirrings of paternal care he never knew he'd experience. He was a billionaire, a titan of industry, but here, in the quiet observation of three small girls, he felt utterly new, utterly vulnerable. Meanwhile, in a less glamorous part of the city, Jennifer seethed. Her humiliation, broadcast across the store and undoubtedly already viral on social media, festered into a burning desire for revenge. Her pristine career at Aurora Lux, the pinnacle of her ambition, had been torched in an instant. Kings Johnson, the man who had delivered the fatal blow, would pay. He would pay dearly. Consumed by bitterness, Jennifer retreated to the dark corners of the internet, making contact with a notoriously ruthless tabloid reporter. She spun a tale of calculated malice, twisting the events to paint Kings as a manipulative predator. She hinted at the unknown children found in his store. concocting a narrative that implied impropriety, a scandalous secret he was desperately trying to cover up. She painted the triplets not as victims of her cruelty, but as pawns in a shadowy game played by the powerful. The article was crafted to be incendiary, to destroy King's reputation as thoroughly as he had destroyed hers. The next morning, the headlines, "Billionaire CEO shelters unknown children." What is he hiding? The story broke like a tidal wave across social media and news channels. Accusations of a love child scandal, tax evasion, and using charity for PR spiraled out of control. Images of Kings leading the bedraggled triplets from the store, taken by a quick-thinking shopper, were splashed across every screen, twisted to fit Jennifer's narrative. Kings, blindsided, watched in a cold fury as his empire teetered. The stock price of Aurora Lux dipped, investors panicked, and his phone buzzed incessantly with calls from frantic board members and his public relations team, all urging him to release a statement, to deny, to clarify. But Kings remained resolute. He refused. Not yet. Not until he confirmed the truth about Maya, until he understood the full scope of the secret that had just exploded into his life. His reputation might be bleeding, his company in turmoil, but his focus was singular. The truth. And the three small girls who now slept soundly in his penthouse, oblivious to the storm raging around their newfound protector. He would confirm his past before he defended his present. The days following Jennifer's vengeful leak were a maelstrom. Kings Johnson, a man accustomed to commanding respect and adoration, found himself at the center of a public crucifixion. His phone was a constant drone of frantic calls from his board of directors, their voices laced with panic as Aurora Lux's stock price continued its alarming descent. "Kings, you must release a statement. This silence is killing us," his lead publicist shrieked down the line, her usual calm shattered. Financial analysts on television screens across the globe dissected his scandal, speculating wildly about hidden affairs and secret children. Paparazzi, like vultures, circled his penthouse, their lenses aimed relentlessly at any flicker of movement. Social media, a relentless beast, tore him apart with condemnation and baseless theories. He was portrayed as a manipulator, a hypocrite, a man hiding heinous secrets. Yet, amidst the deafening roar of public outcry, Kings remained an island of quiet resolve. His silence wasn't born of fear, but of a singular, unwavering focus. The truth about Maya and the welfare of the three girls who now tentatively called his penthouse home. He pushed back against his advisors, his gaze steely. "I will not speak until I have the full, undeniable truth," he declared, his voice leaving no room for argument. His urgent priority had been Elijah Ford. Kings trusted few people implicitly, but Elijah, his seasoned, discreet investigator, was one of them. Their meeting was brief, intense. Kings, shedding his usual corporate facade, laid out his deepest suspicions, the haunting name Maya Lawrence, and the staggering possibility of paternity. He provided what little information he had: Maya's approximate age, the timeline of their relationship, her former position at Aurora Lux. "Absolute discretion, Elijah," Kings emphasized, his eyes piercing. "No leaks, no speculation, just facts. Find her." Elijah, a man of few words but profound insight, simply nodded, a flicker of understanding in his usually impassive eyes. Despite the relentless pressure, Kings carved out moments for the triplets. He found himself drawn to their quiet resilience, their innocent curiosity. He read to them, stories of dragons and faraway lands, his deep voice soothing their fears. He watched them play in the vast living room, their giggles echoing in spaces once filled only by his solitude. Jessica, still the most timid, would sometimes reach for his hand, a small, trusting gesture that solidified his resolve. Tony, ever the leader, would ask him questions about the city outside, questions he answered with a patience he rarely afforded others. Selena, the quiet observer, would simply watch him, her gaze reflecting a nascent bond. With every shared moment, an undeniable bond formed, deepening his commitment to protect them and, more urgently, to find their mother. He was no longer just a billionaire CEO. He was, in some unspoken way, a father. Elijah's investigation began methodically, a shadow moving through the city's forgotten corners. He traced old employment records from Maya's time at Aurora Lux, cross-referenced housing databases, followed faint leads from forgotten social services records. Maya had deliberately disappeared, expertly severing ties, making the search a painstaking process of sifting through years of dust and anonymity. It was a testament to Elijah's skill and King's insistence on secrecy that the search remained entirely separate from the public scandal consuming Kings. Days blurred into a week. Kings battled the board during the day, reassuring investors with promises he couldn't yet fully disclose, then retreated to the quiet comfort of his penthouse, finding solace in the triplets' presence. He was exhausted, stretched to the brink, but Elijah's updates fueled him. There were dead ends, false trails, but a tenacious hope kept Kings pushing. Then the call came. Elijah's voice, usually devoid of emotion, held a faint tremor. "Kings, I've found her. Maya Lawrence. She's in Harlem, a small apartment." Kings's breath hitched. "Is she—" he managed. Elijah's next words were a punch to the gut. "She's alive, Kings. But the news isn't good. She's critically ill. Pneumonia, severe, has been for weeks." The heartbreak was immediate, crushing. Maya, alive, but suffering. A wave of profound guilt washed over Kings. She had been here, in the same city, struggling, while he lived in gilded luxury. But through the heartbreak surged an overwhelming, incandescent hope. She was alive. He could make this right. All other concerns, the media, the stock market, his reputation, vanished. King's next words to Elijah were firm, unwavering. "Prepare the car. We're going to Harlem, now." He stood, a man transformed, ready to override all concerns, driven by a love he thought he had lost, and a family he never knew he had.